Ever just find yourself like uh, flipping through a catalog, not for clothes or gadgets or anything like that, but for something totally unexpected.
Hmm.
That's what we're doing today. We're diving into the world of maritime communication. Icom's marine radios, to be exact. And
Yeah.
before you go thinking, radios, really.
Yeah.
These aren't your average walkie-talkies. We're talking lifelines and emergencies,
Mhm.
unsung heroes of navigation.
Right.
It's how ships out on the open ocean can basically say howdy from across the globe.
I think it's easy to forget about these devices,
Yeah.
but they're the backbone of a system we rely on every day, even if we don't realize it.
Totally. And the catalog we're looking at today from Icom, it's more than just a product list.
Mm.
It's really a glimpse into how technology's evolved to meet the needs of everyone who uses the ocean, whether that's someone going for a casual weekend sail
Mm.
or a massive cargo operation. I mean, what strikes me right away is just the sheer range of what they offer.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
They have something for everyone.
You've got categories like float and flash, which I know sounds a little bit silly on the surface,
Does.
but it's designed to keep the radio afloat and visible if it goes overboard,
Wow.
which is a pretty vital feature when you think about it. It could be life-saving.
Absolutely. And they've thought about all those real-life scenarios.
Mm.
But then you flip a few pages and it's like, bam, you've got intrinsically safe transceiver. I mean, to someone like me who spends most of their time on dry land, that might as well be in a different language.
Well, it really highlights the different needs of the maritime world, right? Intrinsically safe means it's designed for hazardous areas,
Okay.
places where a single spark could be disastrous, like an oil rig or a tanker full of volatile cargo.
That is high stakes.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this phrase, communications beyond the horizon. That just sounds adventurous.
Yeah,
Pushing the limits.
it really captures that desire to connect over long distances when there's nothing but water in sight.
Definitely. But flipping through this catalog, you definitely encounter a lot of jargon. VHF, AIS, DSC.
Yeah.
It can feel a little overwhelming, I imagine, even if you're pretty tech savvy. So maybe we can break down some of those acronyms.
Absolutely. Think of it like this. VHF is your basic way to talk at sea. Kind of like cell service, but for boats.
Okay.
It lets you communicate over short distances, either between vessels or with stations on shore. And then you have AIS, which stands for Automatic Identification System.
Oh, right. I remember reading about this.
It's really a game changer when it comes to safety on the water.
It's like a GPS tracker for boats.
Exactly.
But for someone who doesn't spend a lot of time on a boat, why is that so important?
Imagine you're out in thick fog
Hmm.
or choppy water where you can't see very far ahead. AIS is like having an extra set of eyes. Your boat broadcasts its identity, position, speed, and course.
Wow.
And all the other ships in the area can see that information.
So it's not just knowing where you are, but knowing where everyone else is too.
It's all about avoiding collisions, especially when it's busy or conditions are bad.
That makes sense. And then what about DSC? That one seems particularly important.
DSC stands for Digital Selective Calling. You can think of it as your direct line to emergency services when you're at sea.
Oh, wow.
It's a distress signal that sends your boat's information and location directly to the Coast Guard or anyone else nearby who can help.
So you're out there on the water, right? You got your VHF for chatting,
Hmm.
AIS to see who else is around, and DSC for when things go wrong. What really struck me looking at these Icom radios is that they've managed to pack all of that and more into these devices.
It's amazing how integrated marine technology has become. But even beyond the basic communication systems, this catalog is full of features that show how much thought Icom puts into the user experience in a maritime environment, which can be pretty rough.
Oh, absolutely. And some of these features sound like something straight out of a movie. Like earlier we were talking about Float and Flash. I have to admit that name made me laugh at first.
It is a catchy name.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, dropping your radio overboard is a real danger, especially in rough seas. And that flashing light, it could make all the difference in finding it.
Exactly. It could even be life or death. It really makes you realize these features aren't just gimmicks. They come from understanding the challenges of being out on the water.
Exactly. Another feature that stood out to me, and this one's all about clear communication. Active noise canceling.
I saw that and thought, do you really need that on a boat?
Hmm.
But then I pictured myself on a crowded deck, engines roaring, waves crashing, and suddenly it made sense.
It can be incredibly stressful trying to make yourself heard in that chaos, especially during an emergency. But active noise canceling cuts through all that, so your message gets through loud and clear.
Whether it's a distress call or just chatting with someone, clarity is key. And speaking of cool features, What about this aquaquake thing? I mean, the name sounds like a superpower or something.
Well, remember how we talked about dropping your radio in the water?
Yeah.
Even a little splash can cause problems. Water gets trapped inside and muffles the speaker. But aquaquake uses vibrations to shake the water out. It's like a self-drying feature for your radio.
That's incredible. Yet looking through this catalog, it seems like a lot of these features, while useful for everyone, are especially helpful for people working alone on the water. Things like the man down and lone worker functions.
I noticed those too. It shows that there's a growing awareness of the risks faced by people working solo, maybe on smaller boats or in more remote areas.
That man down function sounds like it could be a real lifesaver.
It is. If the radio stays horizontal or still for too long, like if someone fell overboard, it automatically triggers an alarm.
It's like a silent alarm system you wear.
Exactly.
It's a safety net for when things go wrong, which they can out on the water. You know, the more we talk about these features, the more I realize how much thought goes into designing this equipment.
It's not just about making a radio that can survive a splash. It's about anticipating those real-life situations where that radio could be the difference between a close call and a tragedy.
And that's what I love about this kind of deep dive. We're not just looking at gadgets.
Yeah.
We're getting a glimpse into a whole world that most people don't see, a world that's so important to all of us.
It's true. Even something as ordinary as a product catalog can be a window into a fascinating and vital part of our world.
It's amazing to think about all the different people who use these radios.
Yeah.
You know, out there on the water every day. The
Yeah.
captains, the researchers, even families just out for a sail.
It's a real connection point in this vast and often dangerous environment.
It reminds you that reliable communication, it's not always a given, even in our super connected world.
Right.
I mean, we talked earlier about the shift from simple radio communication
Too.
to these integrated systems with GPS and AIS.
Right.
It makes you realize that kind of evolution. It's
Yeah.
got to be driven by more than just technology improving.
Oh, absolutely. There's been such a huge increase in maritime traffic, both commercial shipping and recreational boating.
So many more people on the water
Exactly. And that means we need more accurate tracking and communication,
to avoid accidents.
especially in busy shipping lanes or areas with low visibility.
Right.
And then you've got the constant challenges of weather
Yeah.
and responding to emergencies effectively.
There's a lot to think about.
It really highlights the need for these really reliable, advanced communication systems.
It's like the ocean is a reflection of what's happening everywhere else.
Yeah.
Getting busier, more complicated,
Yeah.
and we need better tools to navigate it all safely and to think. We're getting this whole perspective from an Icom product catalog.
It just goes to show, even the most ordinary things can be surprisingly interesting.
You just have to know where to look.
This catalog isn't just about selling radios, it's about human ingenuity, our desire to explore, and our constant effort to overcome challenges.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of marine radios, we want to leave you with something to think about. Imagine you're designing a marine radio, but for one specific type of user, someone who depends on the ocean. What features would you include? What would make their lives easier or safer?
What would make their connection to the ocean better?
That's something to consider, because at the end of the day, that's how technology moves forward.
By constantly asking, how can we do this better?
Exactly. And who knows? Maybe someday we'll open up a future Icom catalog and see those very features, inspired by our conversation today.
That would be something.
That's it for today's deep dive. We hope you enjoyed exploring the world of marine radios with us.
Yeah.
And remember, there's always something new to discover, whether it's in the pages of a catalog or out on the open ocean. Until next time, keep exploring and keep asking questions.